Welcome, everybody. Why don't we go ahead and get started? For those of you just joining us this afternoon, my name is Sharon Jobity. I'm the Vice President of Human Resources with the Ontario Centres of Excellence. And it is my pleasure this afternoon to introduce to you our next presentation from the Ministry of Economic Development, Trade and Employment and the Ministry of Research and Innovation. Here to present is Rebekah Witteveen, the lead advisor on the Green Focus on Innovation and Technology, or GreenFIT, initiative. The GreenFIT strategy enables companies to provide innovative and sustainable technologies and solutions that government can consider as alternatives to its traditional purchasing. If you have any questions, Rebekah will be available after the presentation to answer any questions you may have. Rebekah?
So good afternoon, and thank you for joining me on this presentation on GreenFIT. The Green Focus on Innovation. Let's do next first. Am I at the next one? Yeah, okay. The Green Focus on Innovation and Technology initiative was introduced in 2010 as a way to enable the province to use its considerable buying power to become a champion and early adopter for new and innovative green technology solutions. As I'm sure you're all aware, recently or nearly commercialized clean tech solutions face challenges with early sales and market adoption. These solutions are often seen as unproven and in many cases may be more expensive than the traditional technologies or systems that they endeavor to replace. Focusing on leveraging new and innovative green technologies to help reduce the government's environmental footprint by purchasing and validating new green products, GreenFIT provides direct support to innovative technology solutions and provides companies with the credibility they need to succeed. GreenFIT also helps to measure and validate the unique attributes of green technology solutions, which may have a higher initial purchase price than traditional items, but significant longer-term operational savings, as well as notable environmental, economic, and social impacts. The GreenFIT initiative aims to pilot new and innovative goods and services in a government setting, which can contribute to reducing the government's environmental footprint, including reducing toxic and polluting emissions, supporting resource conservation, conserving energy, providing for renewable energy generation, and reducing and diverting waste. Lastly, high-performing pilot projects will also be showcased by the government, providing a platform for companies to demonstrate the effectiveness of their products or services to other potential customers. I'll be highlighting a few of these success stories at the end of this presentation. GreenFIT is a joint initiative between the Ministry of Research and Innovation and the Ministry of Government Services and helps to bridge the gap between commercialization, pre-commercialization of technologies, for which there are grants, investments, and other supports available, and the routine purchases the government makes using standard procurement processes to acquire goods and services. If you had the opportunity to attend the Ministry of Government Services presentation earlier in the day, their presentation focused on how to navigate these standard procurement processes to sell goods and services to the government. In traditional procurement, value for government spend is often assessed as value for money or paying the lowest cost for goods and service. Green procurement is inherently different, but also considers environmental impacts, sustainability, and other social factors that are more difficult but not impossible to measure and quantify. Novel green technologies may have a higher initial purchase price than traditional items, but this can be offset against longer-term operational savings, as well as environmental and economic impacts. As such, purchasing decisions should consider financial costs in parallel with environmental impacts and other social factors that provide significant value to the government, the receptor ministries and organizations that undertake the pilot, and the participating vendors. This value definition is one of the key features of GreenFIT, and by using a pilot process, ensures value for money from a government perspective prior to wide-scale implementation. In addition, GreenFIT also provides value to companies that participate by providing the opportunity to work and implement technologies within a large government organization, but also showcasing opportunities of the successes realized through the pilot, helping them to market their technologies to a wider audience. GreenFIT applies to expenditures made by the Ontario Public Service and what we call the MASH sector, which is the municipal, academics, schools, and hospitals sector, and includes expenses that are in support of green innovation and technological leadership in Ontario and contributes to the greening of the public sector. Eligibility requirements for GreenFIT include 1. Products and services that are innovative or unique and has excellent market potential due to a competitive difference from other similar products or services, or is an original development or patented solution. 2, the solution has not been commercially available for more than 5 years. 3, the solution does not have a history of use and is not currently in use by the Ontario Public Services and is viable for piloting in a government setting. 4, the solution can demonstrate clear, quantifiable environmental benefits. And 5, the project must be implemented, tested, and performance validated within 2 years from the date of a purchase approval. Rather than traditional procurement templates and processes, GreenFIT demonstration projects employ processes that are more closely associated with research and development funding programs. The goal is to expedite promising projects without compromising due diligence. For new demonstration projects, there are 2 GreenFIT processes available. The first option is known as a targeted process. This process allows companies to submit responses to a ministry-specific solicitation for a category of goods or services or a specific technology solution. While this process is similar to traditional request for proposals processes, this process is highly flexible and can be customized to ministry requirements. Targeted expressions of interest are advertised on MERX, the electronic tendering system. The second is known as the open expression of interest process and allows any company with an eligible solution or pilot project concept to submit their idea to the province. The process is ongoing and available to any technology solution or company that meets the eligibility requirements. There is a self-assessment tool available on the Ministry of Government Services GreenFIT website to help you determine whether or not your technology or service is a good fit for GreenFIT. The application and review process is a 2-step process for the unsolicited vendor-initiated proposals and an expedited 1-step process for ministry-targeted applications. For the open of expression interest process, an initial internal ministry review of the proposal is undertaken to confirm eligibility and then will undergo additional external technical reviews to assess which projects demonstrate the highest potential and match with government purchasing needs. For high potential pilot projects, the ministry will endeavor to find a host ministry or organization to undertake the pilot. However, it should be noted that there is no guarantee that projects that have the high potential will be picked up by a ministry. Once a host ministry has indicated their interest, a more detailed business case will be developed and undergo technical review to help quantify the expected benefits of the pilot. Alternatively, for the target of expression of interest process, once companies have submitted their proposals in response to an open request and an initial review of the qualified companies compiled, a more detailed business case will also be undertaken with additional external technical review. Once a pilot project has been approved by a ministry or organization, the pilot will become operational and performance tracking will begin. At the end of the pilot, an evaluation will be undertaken to understand what the potential return on investment will be if rolled out to a wider market, as well as compare the claims made in the business case to the data that was collected during the pilot. At this point, showcasing of the success will begin, and decisions will be made by the ministry that hosted the pilot on future procurement of the technology. Due to the greatly varied nature of the technologies and services that apply to GreenFIT, I'll just go into a little bit more detail about how the applications are evaluated. When undertaking an open expression of interest, there is a section that requires companies to evaluate their product based on key decision criteria that are expressed in the form of language ladders. These language ladders provide a series of succinct statements with the lowest or least desirable position at A and the highest or most desirable position at D. Within the application, there are 7 of these ladders which focus on environmental benefits, solution readiness, solution competitive differentiation, market opportunity, economic benefits to end users, Ontario Public Service and MASH rollout potential, and the economic benefits to Ontario. For example, the options presented for the solutions readiness language ladder are A, the solution has not yet reached full commercial status, B, the solution has limited commercial success in other applications, but has not yet been adapted for use in applications that would be proposed for the pilot, C, the solution has had a first application similar to that's proposed for the pilot, but hasn't been yet fully proven on a commercial scale. And D, the solution proposed for the project has been commercially proven in other applications that are similar to the proposed pilot and requires only modest adaptations for the uses planned in the pilot project. Once a selection has been made, there is an opportunity to justify the selection by providing a short written response. Once the expression of interest has been reviewed, reports are created to identify and analyze particular areas of strength and weakness. At this stage of the application review, all the impact data has been collected from the application and the company, and validation occurs in the demonstration itself. So before I go into a couple of our success stories, there are a few qualifiers. The first is that the results are specific to this pilot and they may differ in other situations. And the second is to simplify the examples. I've taken out some of the important value factors to exclude them, and these include other environmental, economic, and social factors that support the value of a specific technology. The first example is one that went through the GreenFIT Open Expression of Interest process and was piloted by the Ministry of Northern Development Mines. Northern Development and Mines has a very active green team of employees that aim to increase their environmental responsibility through greener business practices, which includes improved energy efficiency and waste management diversion in government buildings. The pilot ran from November 2011 to May 2012 and was located at the Willett Green Miller Center in Sudbury, with the aim to drastically reduce the 43 kilograms, or 100 pounds, of organic waste that was produced on an average day at this facility, and to verify the true economic and environmental value of the solution. Food Cycle Sciences on-site program consisted of the deployment of a dehydrator unit to process food waste on location. Through the dehydration process, both food waste mass and volume was reduced, leaving a small amount of nutrient-rich residual material, which was ideal for fertilizing. Throughout the pilot, 1,500 kilograms of organic waste was processed and yielded 265 kilograms of this organic fertilizer, with a total rate reduction of 82%. All of this 265 kilograms of fertilizer was diverted from landfill, and actually was used by employee and cleaning staff for their home gardens, as well as for use around the center around their gardens. Further reductions in methane gas and wastewater produced by watering food waste, as well as energy and other savings, were realized from fewer waste pickups. The second success story I'd like to highlight is a pilot undertaken by the Ministry of Transportation. The Ministry of Transportation is responsible for government fleet vehicle management and identified a goal to reduce engine idling and fuel consumption, leading to reduced greenhouse gas emissions. Idling vehicles are a big problem. It wastes fuel, pollutes the air, and it's not good for the engine. These problems are amplified in commercial and government fleets, where idling is necessary to keep safety equipment, electronic systems, and computers running. A request for proposals was issued both directly to organizations as well as posted publicly on MERX, the electronic tendering system. As a result of this process and technical review, the GRIP system, which stands for Governor to Reduce Idling and Pollution, was identified as a candidate to pilot. The GRIP system consists of a high-resolution operator screen and controller which can recognize and manage idling time. Such technologies offer a significant opportunity to reduce fuel consumption while realizing ancillary environmental and economic benefits. Over the course of the pilot, the technology was tested in over 30 vehicles that included a mix from the OPP, Ministry of Transportation, Ministry of the Environment, Niagara Parks Police, and the Ontario Fire Marshal. Of the benefits realized through this pilot, engine idling was reduced 31% over normal usage, which produces both fuel savings and equivalent reductions of greenhouse gas emissions. The life of the vehicles is also extended, which reduces the environmental impacts of used vehicle disposal and new vehicle construction. Over the course of the pilot, over 14,900 liters of fuel and the equivalent of 31.76 megatons of greenhouse gas emissions were avoided. And this was only for a fraction of the government fleet. Savings would be much more significant if it was included in the wider government fleet. The company has attracted a lot of interest in the GRIP system through this pilot, which includes major car companies as well as other jurisdictions with vehicle fleets of their own. It is expected that further showcasing of this success will only help the company greatly expand into the vehicle market. So all the information that was discussed in this presentation, including what GreenFIT is, the eligibility criteria, and ways to participate in GreenFIT, is available on the Ministry of Government Services Supply Chain website. It's at the bottom of the slide. It's doingbusiness.mgs.gov.on.ca. Alternatively, you could just Google GreenFIT. You'll get to the same webpage. And if you didn't get a chance to attend the Ministry of Government Services presentation this morning on procurement, their information is also available on that website. However, if you do have an innovative technology but you feel like it might not be a good fit for GreenFIT, I recommend that you check out these other resources for program and funding opportunities to help you commercialize your innovative ideas. The Ministry of Research and Innovation has a webpage dedicated to programs and funding available, and you can access it at ontario.ca/innovation. As well as the Ontario Network of Entrepreneurs also has fantastic resources to help commercialize innovative technologies and grow your business. And their resources can be accessed at onebusiness.ca. So thank you for the opportunity to talk about GreenFIT. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
There's no questions. Rebekah, thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation and sharing with us some of the insights about and some of the success stories from the GreenFIT initiative. Our next presentation this afternoon, we have It's my pleasure to introduce to you from the International Trade branch of the Ministry of Economic Development, Trade and Employment and the Ministry of Research and Innovation. We are delighted to have Marek Karwowski with us today. Marek is the Senior International Marketing Consultant in the areas of construction, environment, and renewable energy, and will be speaking to you regarding international trade branch export programs and services. So if you have any questions, Marek will have some opportunity to answer them after the presentation. So welcome.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. As was said, my name is Marek Karwowski. I'm in the International Trade branch of the Ministry of Economic Development, Trade and Employment, and the Ministry of Research and Innovation. My colleague Rebekah has just talked a bit about the procurement side of part of our business, and as this is the Procurement and Export Innovation Center, or the Procurement and Export Center, I'm here to talk about the export side. The presentation will discuss what we do at the International Trade branch. There's a lot of slides. Hopefully there'll be a little bit of time at the end to take questions. But if you need to talk to me after, feel free just to grab me. I'll be around the hall for a while. So, to start with, why are exports important to Ontario's economy? Very short, you can read for yourself. I mean, it's a very, very big part of Ontario's economy. Ontario is really an exporting jurisdiction. Although some people will say that, you know, a very small percentage of our SMEs actually do export. For the companies that have exportable products and services and have innovative products and services, it's quite a large percentage of those companies who are actually exporting. So 40% of GDP, 40% of all jobs in SMEs. And on the export side, international trade equals 77% of our GDP. Quite a lot of jobs as well. So how do we connect these SMEs, these small and medium-sized enterprises, to international markets? Very generally, this is the sort of Coles Notes version. What the International Trade branch does at the Ontario government is we lead trade missions, 60 of them each year, and these are sort of the smaller trade missions. We also, over the last 3 years, have organized 6 premiers missions. These are the big ones you may hear about on the TV when the premier goes to China or to Israel or to Brazil, etc. We have a lot of incoming missions, incoming delegations. That is, we host incoming buyers from foreign countries, and we will introduce Ontario companies to those incoming buyers and incoming delegations. We cover over 35 countries. We've had over 1,500 companies over the last 3 years on these outbound missions. We've assisted over 2,000 SMEs in general, including in seminars and such. And one of the metrics we use to quantify our success is we've had 88% positive feedback from our mission members. That is, people reporting that we've done a good or an excellent job. And the companies that we've worked with have attributed over $100 million in sales, export sales, due directly to their participation in our programs over the last 3 years. And so this is about a 18 times return on investment when looking at the amount of money that it takes to run our shop. So this presentation will look at 3 general areas of the International Trade branch: who we serve, our target client group, what we do, so our export programs, and how we decide on markets and sectors on which to focus. So who are our clients? SMEs, which have exportable goods and services, professional services, and value added in Ontario. So this is very key. A lot of people will say, oh, you're only working with the really big companies. We tend overwhelmingly just to work with SMEs. And SMEs, there's a lot of definitions of what that means. But for us, in general, it's companies really under 50 employees. Sometimes I would say the large majority of the companies we work with are probably under 30 employees. And they have to have exportable goods and services, so not obviously retail. We don't work a whole lot with companies that have commodity products and such. So agri-food is taken care of by the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Affairs. We don't work with people who are selling pulp and paper and minerals and things like that. It's manufactured goods for the most part and professional services. and they have to have significant value added in Ontario. So things which are actually made or designed or created here, as opposed to distributors for, say, European products that want to distribute the products out of Ontario to the rest of North America. So what do we do with those companies? What are the services available for these SMEs? We tend to generally categorize the clients into 3 groups. So potential exporters, often very small companies which are not currently doing any exporting, which may be a lot of the companies in this room, a lot of the new innovative companies. New exporters, people who have just started doing some exporting, maybe they've had some reactive sales into the United States or a one-off somewhere else, and experienced exporters. And with experienced exporters, for the most part, what we're trying to do is either get them to, or assist them in deepening or their sales within a specific market, maybe to different regions within that market, say within the United States, or expanding to other countries. They may have a lot of experience in the US, or they may have a lot of experience in Mexico, but now they're interested in going to Venezuela, and going to Chile, or in going to Europe. So how do we do this? As I said, we run domestic events and international events. Domestic events are the seminars, the VTMs, which stand for Virtual Trade Missions, incoming buyer programs, the things we run here in Ontario, about 55 of those a year. Outbound trade missions, so I said about 60 a year of those, are trade missions either to trade shows around the world, or sometimes we will do what we call simply a mission which will go and visit a certain country or maybe a couple countries, and we'll go and visit potential buyers in that country. Maybe we'll go to a conference. So there's not necessarily a trade show like we have here at Discovery. We may actually be on the road all the time visiting potential customers and influencers, government officials, and such. On the domestic side, for companies which don't have a whole lot of experience, there are a number of seminar-type programs which we organize. First steps in exporting, those are done across the province. We do Canada-Ontario Export Forum events, which are fairs which bring together a lot of different players who assist companies. So, for example, ourselves, plus EDC, plus the federal government, plus municipal governments, sometimes accelerators, and we'll have a fair made up of those different types of organizations. Webinars. Webinars are interesting. I did a webinar recently which focused on the implications of the Buy America rulings on potential sales of water technology equipment into the US. So it can be very specific. It's a very inexpensive way for Ontario companies to get information while they're still based here, or even if they're on the road, they can just log in and listen to a webinar. The new exporters to border states missions, these are a category of events we've been doing now for probably 25 years. I would say the most successful of any of the programs we do. They're mini trade missions that simply go right across the border to Buffalo for the most part, and visit the border itself, so you get an idea of how to get your people and your goods across the border, and how to do the correct documentation. While in Buffalo, there's often a series of meetings with people talking about banking, how to get paid in the U.S. by the U.S. customer, about fulfillment, how to ship from the U.S., how to, when you can ship down in bulk your goods to a warehouse in the U.S., how to do those kinds of things. And we'll talk about how to work with distributors and agents and such. Really fantastic program, lasts a day and a half. And it's sort of an intensive nuts and bolts way of learning how to export. In addition, some of the specialty seminars that we do, NAFTA seminars, how to do your NAFTA paperwork, how to get, how to know if you qualify for NAFTA, how to do those analyses. Trade compliance seminars, CE mark certification for goods that you want to sell in Europe, how to get the CE mark. Intellectual property concerns. So if you're worried about international intellectual property concerns, Very, very important for a lot of the companies here who are, obviously involved in ventures that have a high level of intellectual property, what to do to protect yourself. Capital projects, so how to get involved in some of the huge projects which are going on around the world, how to get to be part of supply chain for something like Masdar in Dubai or for one of these eco cities in China, if that's possible. And global exporter forums, large conferences where we will focus specifically on certain countries or certain sectors and go in depth into what it takes to do business there and get some stories, some success stories from Ontario companies. So how do we do this? How do we connect the companies to the markets? A little bit of a busy slide, but in general talks a little bit about how we focus or how we suggest to companies that they market themselves or they devise a market strategy. A lot of smaller companies, a lot of companies which have had some success in Canada but have not yet exported, they really often want to do everything at once. You'll ask them on a questionnaire, what market are you interested in selling to? And they'll write in all of the above. They want to do everything at once, whereas a key strategy, of course, is to focus. You'll hear this over and over again. Focus. Even in the United States, cut up the United States into small, manageable chunks. In China, definitely cut it up into small municipal chunks and go after specific markets, specific slices of those country markets. When we do trade missions, there's a little bit of information there. Talks about what's involved. So often, if it's a trade mission to a show, to a trade show, we'll have an Ontario pavilion that you can exhibit in at a very, very cost-effective way. We'll line up B2B meetings with people that we know already from either previous visits or from our network, people we know who could be potential buyers or collaborators in the market. Often we'll do a reception or a breakfast briefing, and we'll do some one-on-one individualized programs for some of these events where we'll take one or two companies and go specifically to a certain government agency or a buyer or a site that is of interest to them. The way we recruit for these missions, so of course everything goes on our website, www.ontarioexports.ca, and there's a calendar there with all of our missions, but we work intensively with various associations across Ontario, groups like Ontario Centres of Excellence, industry associations, municipal jurisdictions, and they also help us get the message out that such and such a mission is coming up. You may be interested in this. There are two money programs, financial programs, that we're involved with. These are two programs which are actually administered by the Ontario Chamber of Commerce using money given by the Ontario government and some money from the federal government. The first one, I'll start with the one on the bottom, is the Export Market Access Fund. And this is a fund that gives 50% of your costs for business development in a new market. Now we're talking about relatively smaller amounts of money, not the multi-hundred thousands of dollars, but $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 for business development costs, which can include things such as buying trade show space, tickets to and from a foreign market. There's some per diem expenses, translation of literature into a foreign language. And that's, as I say, administered by the Ontario Chamber of Commerce, the website www.exportaccess.ca. And there's another fund called the Ontario Exporters Fund, which is for companies which are just a little bit further along from the stage of being, I guess, potential or new exporters. And this is a fund that has been set up to address the issue that with a lot of companies, a lot of SMEs particularly, they have fantastic technology, they have a great motivated CEO or engineer. Often it's the inventor, CEO, engineer is all the same person, and they're running the business. And they get to a certain size whereby in order to really give the amount of time necessary to go after an export market, it's taking away from their other responsibilities. They have to run the business. They have to work on R&D. So at a certain point, they'll be wanting to hire an export manager or a international business development person. So the Ontario Exporters Fund is designed to help them do that by paying half of the salary of that person for a maximum of 24 months for $80,000. So that's $40,000 a year. So you're looking at hiring someone at about $80,000 a year for 2 years. And if you meet the requirements, you can access that money. This slide just gives a rundown of the markets that we are focusing on. The obvious ones are the BRIC countries, in addition, of course, the US. So Brazil, Russia, India, China. Everybody's been talking about those for years and years now. Very, very important markets, but extraordinarily competitive. It takes many years, for the most part, for companies to get a toehold in these markets. So in addition, of course, to these markets, there are a lot of smaller markets where we find that the buyers are very, very happy to see Ontario companies coming there, selling their technology. There may be some relationship between Ontario and these markets already, and you can see a list of those, such as Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Thailand, Vietnam, from Southeast Asia, some from East Asia and from South America. Chile and Peru are great markets. Singapore, a fantastic market, particularly for water technology. Netherlands, also a great market for environmental technologies. Sweden, Denmark. Qatar, Kuwait, fantastic market for sustainable building technologies in Qatar and Kuwait, because of course you might have seen, in places like Qatar and Dubai, the construction happening in those places. They need help in terms of design and in terms of sustainable design. So it gives you an idea of what markets we're working with companies on. This is just the same sort of information done graphically, but it does give you an idea of the matrix of, along the top, the different sectors, and along the side, the different markets that we help companies explore. So the idea to take from this slide is it's not every market in every country. Some countries are more, there's a better chance of getting success in specific sectors. And you can see there, generally speaking, those are the ones that we're looking at. For example, in aerospace, obviously the US and Europe are huge markets. Mexico is a great market for aerospace components. China is a great market. And then it goes along to the various other sectors. This is just a slide that shows the situation today, where Ontario is exporting to, where the companies export to. No surprise, the number one is the US, 77.9% in 2012. In brackets shows what the value was in the year previous to that. So it's actually gone up in the last year. This is we're not necessarily doing that much better in the US. Unfortunately, in 2012, there was a lot of shifting around in some of other markets. Some markets went down. But the US is starting to pick up again, which is good news for Ontario. The rest, you can see the rest is that 22.1% divided up between European Union and EFTA is the big chunk of that. Asia and Oceania, so obviously China and Asian markets, Mexico, Caribbean, South America, and Middle East, and then Russia. And as you can see, we're still overwhelmingly exporting to the United States, and there is a story about that, which I'll come back to. The Ontario government has a network of people working on behalf of Ontario companies around the world. Not very well known, this fact, but we have what we call IMCs, International Marketing Centers, which are actually employees of the government that are situated in various countries around the world. Usually they're co-located within a Canadian embassy or Canadian High Commission or consulate. And those are, if you can make out on the slide, the little red circles. 2 people in China, 1 person in Beijing, 1 person in Shanghai, 1 person in Brazil, in Germany, France, India, Japan, Mexico, one in the UK and 2 in the US. One right now in Los Angeles, they're moving the office up to San Francisco, and the other person in New York City. So those offices take care of sort of general interests of the Ontario economy, I guess I would say. So it's trade and investment, but there's also academic interests and various other parts of the economy. There are also international trade development representatives, ITDRs, which are companies which we contract, independent companies, which we contract to do work on behalf of Ontario companies around the world. And that's the little diamond shape, and we have people in Chile, Brazil, Mexico, the UAE, the Gulf, and Southeast Asia who are undertaking that work. And as well, there are international business development representatives which do the same thing, but from an investment perspective. Those people are actually looking to attract investment into Ontario from those other markets. Okay, the US. All countries trade with their neighbor. If we were beside China, we'd be trading with China. We're beside the US. It's a very open market. It's a huge market. That's why we will always have a huge amount of our trade going there. A lot of countries would like to be physically where Canada is and have access to the US market. So that's the short form of why we're exporting to the US. We want to diversify our exports, so we're not depending so much on the US, but it's more a question of growing the pie. We don't want the exports to the US to go down in real value, and the exports in other countries to go up. That's a wash, and we don't want that. We want all the exports to go up and more diversification. A little bit of information there about risk in the various markets and what companies should look at. I'll go over that. Considerations for how we choose the various sectors and services. One of the interesting points: companies can be born exporters. We've seen more and more of that, I think, over the last 10, 15 years. Small IT companies, particularly. In the past, you'd have some time before companies actually started exporting. Now, quite often, you'll have small companies, technology companies, 2 people working together. They'll have a great idea, and because of technology, because of communications technology and ease of shipping and ease of advertising and marketing around the world, they may have their first sale outside of Canada, outside of North America even. So certain companies do not fit sort of the old-fashioned model where you start slow in Ontario and then US and then around the world. Customization, differentiation, all of these things are key to business success internationally. Okay, one thing I want to do before the end of the presentation is give you an idea of some of the programs we have coming up this fiscal year. I've taken 3 sectors, which are key sectors, I believe, for this crowd. So ICT, clean technologies, and the third one, life sciences. And just going to let you know what trade missions and what incoming programs we're going to have in the branch. So this year, in the ICT sector in Asia, we have a ICT mission to ICT Expo in Hong Kong and a mission to Taiwan at the same time. That actually happened already in April. Coming up very soon, one of my colleagues is going to Communicasia. That's Margaret, folks, if you want to put up your hand. If you're interested in going to Communicasia in Singapore in June, she'll be leading a mission there. In January of 2014, there will be an ICT mission to Convergence in Delhi and to Mumbai as an extra sort of visit after that trade show. So obviously targeting the Indian market. In South America, there was a security mission to ExpoSec in Sao Paulo, IT security. FutureCom in Brazil is coming up in October, so communications technology for the Brazilian market. There is another ICT security mission, this time to Mexico and Colombia, planned for November. Continuing with ICT in the US, my colleague Maurizio Spina will do, actually has just done CTIA in Las Vegas. SIGGRAPH, which is a very interesting animation and digital animation show happening in Anaheim later on in the summer. ACES, a security show happening in Chicago. There's going to be an incoming US buyers program happening this fall. And then finally, next January in Miami, there's IT Expo, so cloud and internet technologies. And just to give you an idea of these kinds of missions are, for the most part, usually have anywhere from, say, 6 to maybe 12 or 14 companies per mission. So there's a lot of opportunity for the companies to get real one-on-one attention from the various government staff which are working on these programs. Finally, in the Middle East, there's GTEx happening in Dubai in October. Europe, MIPS, which is a securities technology show, happened in Moscow earlier this year. SVIATS, also in Moscow, just took place. SVIATS ExpoCom. MIFA, which is a digital animation show in Annecy in France, high in the mountains. Wonderful, wonderful event. Takes place in June. The IBC, a big infotech show happening in Amsterdam. CeBIT, Belisim in Istanbul. This reflects the growing interest and the growing market in Turkey for IT products, happening in October. And of course, every year, big event, the World Mobile Congress happens in Barcelona. That's going to be obviously February next year. Life sciences, for those companies interested in life sciences. Maybe before I get to life sciences, because we have a couple more slides left, put up your hand if you're involved in life sciences here. Okay, a few, okay, good. So I'll go through it then. So in Asia, coming up in Singapore, Healthcare World Asia, and a post-conference mission to Southeast Asia. Incoming buyers programs from China for medical devices, from Southeast Asia, and from Japan, medical imaging happening at various times in the year. South America, an incoming buyers program from Peru, which is to be announced probably to happen in the fall of this year. Healthcare IT, so HIT. In the Middle East, there's Arab Health happening next January in Dubai. There's an incoming buyer coming from Abu Dhabi, from the Ministry of Interior Ambulance Division to look at those types of technologies. In the US, we just had we have bio coming up in June in Chicago. AdvaMed medical device mission to Washington happening in September. RSNA, radiology show happening in December in Chicago. Life Science Alley mission happening in Minneapolis. That's, I believe, in the early part of next year. Biopartnering North America, which happens in Vancouver this year in February. And HIMSS, which is a healthcare IT event happening in Orlando in February. So lots of stuff happening in the US life sciences area. In Europe, we have World of HIT in Dublin. That just happened recently. Biopartnering Europe happening in Stockholm in October. Medica, the big German show, one of the biggest in the world for life sciences technologies in Düsseldorf in November. And there's a planned incoming biotech buyers mission from the Netherlands happening in Q3, so happening from October, November, December. Environment and energy, the area which I look at specifically. In Asia, as you can see, lots of events happening in Asia. Energy and environment is a huge interest around the world. Lots of great Ontario companies and is a focus for our ministry. So an oil and gas mission to Australia, that's just right now when Bopan is there. Aquatech, a water event in Shanghai happening in June. The mission will also go to the environment mission to Guiyang, and that's in this June. Expo Asia in Hong Kong in October. TIGS, it's in Taiwan. General Green Industry Environmental Show in October. SEPI, an environmental protection show in Nanjing, happening in November. Environmental mission to Vietnam, Indonesia, Philippines. I believe that's still happening. Maybe, yes, okay, good. In December, to be confirmed. Smart Energy Week happening next year in Tokyo. We did the first Smart Energy Week this past winter. Fantastic success for any companies that have energy efficiency products. And Expo Build, Shanghai and mission to Fujian and Hunan provinces in March. And then more incoming buyers programs. Cleantech mission to Mexico, incoming buyers programs. There's a Middle East mission to Masdar. Incoming buyers program from Masdar. My apologies. In the US, I'll do WEFTech, the big water show happening in Chicago in October. Distributech, Smart Grid event happening in San Antonio in January. And then to Vancouver for Globe, the great event that they have in all environmental sectors. There's always a large Ontario pavilion at that. After that, in Toronto, we have a post-Globe conference. also some other events happening. As well, we do some work on linking up companies with sources of capital, venture capital, and research collaboration. So we have people in our office which are working on those fields. And generally speaking, that's it. Just to let you know that we provide all of these services. We try to link up companies. We provide contacts. But it's really the market that makes the winner or loser. It's the company work and the market. So that's one thing to look at. Just a little slide showing the various states in the US and how they match up against various countries around the world in sense of GDP. One of my favorite is the Texas market is the entire size of the Russian market. So anybody here interested in water technologies, particularly, one of my key markets which I recommend to people is Texas for water technologies. Huge need. And a simple list of some of the companies we've worked with over the last year. You might recognize some of those. That's my contact information. If you have any questions, I'm around. I'll be over at the water booth quite a bit. If you want information on other people who work in our branch, there's about 20 of us working in all those other markets. I have these little flyers. It gives email address and phone numbers. So thank you very much, everybody, and have a good discovery.
Thank you, Marek, for sharing that with us this afternoon and really providing us with some insights on the various services and programs that are available in helping companies to export and all the various trade missions that are ongoing. So thank you for that. And as Marek said, he'll be available this afternoon, so should anybody have any questions, please feel free to stop by and chat with him. So for you, those of you who are just joining us, again, my name is Sharon Jobity. I'm the Vice President of Human Resources with the Ontario Centres of Excellence. And I just want to welcome you to our final procurement presentation for the afternoon in the Export and Procurement Theatre. And it's my pleasure to introduce to you Al Hamill, Senior Director, Electronics, Munitions and Tactical Systems Procurement, Acquisitions Branch, the Public Works and Government Services Canada. Al will speak to us on the very specific topic of defense and security procurement. So welcome, Al.
Let's wait a few minutes for the place to fill up. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the Department of Public Works and Government Services, it's really a large multi-headed beast in that it has about 14,000 employees, and it is responsible for 7 or 8 different major roles on behalf of the Government of Canada. One of them is acquisition, or procurement if you wish. Our department looks after all of the contracting and procurement requirements for the rest of the Government of Canada. Even the Department of National Defence, which has a huge budget and huge requirements, doesn't have a lot of delegated procurement authority. They have to get their contracting done by our department. Now, within our department, that role is carried out by the Acquisitions Branch, as you might have heard a minute ago. And within that branch, there are a couple of sectors that deal with the defense and security mandate, and I'm in one of them. So I'm going to be talking about 2 different sectors within our branch that cover off all of the marine requirements, that is to say the shipbuilding and the major ship refit programs, and the other sector which looks after Army, Air Force, and other defense and security customers, if you will. Push the button and it works, right. So we look after the requirements for major Crown projects for, not just for D&D, but for other departments as well. And we look after the full gamut of defense and security projects. We're also involved in various initiatives to improve military procurement. And in particular, these days, it's very popular to talk about leveraging military procurement, or even more generally, leveraging federal government procurement for the greater good of Canadians in terms of socioeconomic benefits. You can see the major clients we have there. National Defence is by far the biggest one, probably represents about 80% of the business of those two sectors. Canadian Commercial Corporation is kind of a funny organization that we deal with. They facilitate contracts with foreign governments, and we provide some support for them. For most of the other clients you see there, it's sort of what I consider as the armed and dangerous ones, the ones that have specific security requirements for which we work, with whom we work very closely to help them satisfy them. For the marine sector, the Director General there is Scott Leslie, and you see his phone number. And my boss in the defense and major project sector is Kathy Sabiston. Now I'm going to be putting up names and phone numbers throughout the presentation so that you will see who to contact if you're particularly interested in any particular aspect. First one I want to talk about is armored vehicles. My colleague Maurice Boileau is responsible for the acquisition and sustainment of the Army's armored vehicle fleet. He has two major projects on the go right now, one called the Force Mobility Enhancement Project, which is in effect converting tank-like vehicles into engineering vehicles that provide support for building roads and other kinds of mobility enhancement activities. The light armored vehicle, the LAV3, the light armored vehicle version 3, is actually built in Ontario by General Dynamics Land Systems in London, and they have the upgrade project underway to improve the protection in terms of resistance to mines and improvised explosive devices, as well as improving mobility and firepower. So as you can see, in the last 5 years, he's generated about $1.7 billion worth of business for the department. My colleague Scott McClure looks after the Aerospace equipment program. That includes basically everything that flies for the Canadian Forces and the Coast Guard, including the new F-35s if we ever get them, or whatever we end up getting. And actually his portfolio was a bit odd in that it actually includes a bit of support for some civilian aircraft, civilian-like aircraft. For example, the Airbus 320 fleet that is used for strategic transport for the Canadian Air Force. And also, of course, the North Warning System is his baby as well. Again, about $1 billion worth of business annually over the last 5 years. This one is my favorite because it's mine. Electronics, munitions, and tactical systems procurement. It's particularly interesting to me because it's so diverse. It isn't just armored vehicles. It isn't just airplanes. It's a lot of different kinds of things. As you can see, the munitions aspect is prominent. We actually manage the Canadian Munitions Supply Program, which is a very old program going back to about 1974 that guarantees that basic materials needed for an army to fight are produced in Canada, guaranteed source of supply in Canada. So all kinds of ammunition, everything from the very smallest bullets to the biggest artillery rounds are produced in Lagardère, Quebec by General Dynamics Ordnance and Tactical Systems Canada. The basic weapons, the rifles, machine guns, small arms of all types are produced under the Munitions Supply Program by Colt Canada, working out of Kitchener-Waterloo. And that has quite an impact actually on the local area around London because there's a whole ecosystem of subcontractors and suppliers that support Colt Canada in carrying out its mandate. But we also get into other stuff, everything from heavyweight torpedoes for Navy submarines to laser-guided bombs and laser-guided training rounds for the Air Force, and rockets produced by Magellan Aerospace in Winnipeg. Outside of the munitions area, we do a lot of work in various kinds of electronics, everything from radios for the soldiers to shipborne radars and everything in between. The Army's Land Tactical Command, Control and Communication System was purchased about 10 years ago and is going through a major life extension activity to replace and buy and improve and enhance that. General Dynamics Canada, working out of Ottawa and Calgary, are our major contractor for doing that. We also are heavily involved in land force, intelligence, surveillance, and target acquisition and reconnaissance. LF-ISTARS is called. And included in that are radars for the Army, for both surveillance and for detection of incoming projectiles of various kinds. It also includes uninhabited air vehicles, drones of various kind, everything from hand-launched to a shipborne launched air vehicles that can carry out surveillance and target acquisition missions. So over the last 5 years, we've generated about $1.5 billion in business over that time. It's a very busy place. A lot of interesting, different kinds of things going on. One of the other areas is the kind of the spook business, if you will, the Communications Security Canada, the CSIS people, the RCMP, who have sensitive requirements in terms of electronics and some weapons as well. So our area is the one area in the entire branch where we can do classified procurement up to the top secret level. So we handle all of their black procurements. I also have a group that operates out of Germany, in Koblenz, Germany, and it has. So one of my excuses to go to Germany every 6 months or so is to visit my team in Koblenz. They have three main roles. One is they look after all of the first line spares for the Victoria-class submarine. Now you might wonder why we're buying submarine parts in Germany for Canadian submarines. And the reason is because, don't forget, they came from the United Kingdom, and because they were designed and built in the United Kingdom, that entire supply chain for them is European-based. As my predecessor talked about, we trade with our neighbors, and the UK would have got most of their work done by other European countries as well as the UK. So the suppliers of those spare parts are still European-based companies, and it makes it very easy for us to do that contracting out of Europe. We also support the Canadian forces in their deployed operations in various parts of the world. Working out of Koblenz makes it, in effect, gives us a foot on the ground in Europe. So we're in the same time zone as Africa and not too far off in the Middle East. And of course, all of Europe is within one time zone or two from Koblenz. So it is very useful for supporting deployed operations in Afghanistan or Africa or the Balkans or the Middle East or wherever to support the Canadian forces on deployed operations. And we also, because a lot of the Canadian armored vehicles, originally the tanks came from Germany, from Krauss-Maffei, Wegmann in Germany, we find it convenient to work out of Germany to contract for those spare parts and repair and overhaul operations and so on. One of my colleagues, Sylvie Lalonde, looks after major projects for the land side. Not so much the heavy armored vehicles, but the wheel vehicles, kind of logistics kinds of vehicles, as well as the tactical armored patrol vehicle, which is the one on the lower right there. The tactical armored patrol vehicle contract has been awarded, and I think the company that got that contract is working closely with some Canadian suppliers in Ontario, not General Dynamics Land Systems, but another company to provide part of the supply chain for doing that. The close combat vehicle is about to be awarded. I think we're just waiting for Treasury Board approval on that, and that should be coming out fairly soon. Major Projects Air is under Lynn Levesque-Chou, is handling the maritime helicopter project, as well as that's the Sikorsky helicopter. as well as the Chinook helicopter, and they look after tactical training and operational support for the Air Force. Fixed wing SAR, you might have heard a little bit about that lately. It's back in the news again. It has kind of come and gone over the last 5 years. It went through kind of a couple of false starts and had the requirements had to be redefined and the specifications produced twice. So that is getting close now to being a real procurement, with the draft RFP coming out this summer and the final RFP sometime early in next year. Okay, so that covers off so far all of the non-marine projects and activities. So the remaining slides, I'll be just giving you some insight into into what's going on in the Navy side. So the Halifax class modernization extension, called Felix, is looking after a major. It may sound pretty easy to say, well, we're just going to modernize and refit the existing Canadian warships, but it ends up being a very complicated, very long activity to do, and it's been going on for a number of years now. You can see the $2.7 billion is a lot of money for refit, but that's what it takes to have a Navy. It's the Canadian surface combatants, as you probably have heard from the National Shipbuilding Procurement Strategy news that was going on a while back, are all being done by Irving Shipyard out of Halifax, and the replacing the existing destroyers and frigates is one of the activities that's part of that. Again, that's going to be a long-term process that's going to require a lot of time to get the design right before we're getting into production, but it is underway. Contracts are being awarded. This is another combat package that's part of the Irving Shipbuilding Company. And the Joint Support Ship is part of what's known as the non-combat package, and it was part of the package that was awarded to Vancouver Shipyard, and they, of course, are handling all of the non-combatant ones. And this is one that's actually already finished, the mid-shore patrol vessel rather. Those contracts have been awarded, deliveries are happening, and it should be all finished by about 2014. And this is one for the Coast Guard that our group, or the Marine sector, is doing for the Coast Guard, replacing 4 existing vessels. Showing my Army roots here, I think I keep calling them vehicles. If they put some wheels on them, they'd probably do better. So that is happening as well. And the Polar Icebreaker is another non-combatant one that's just underway. And I think I got one more here. I'm just hurrying a little bit because I want to cover something else here. Before I get to questions, I just want to. That was a fast kind of expose of stuff that's going on in our area, but I wanted to get through it so that I could talk a bit more about what it really might mean to businesses who are interested in getting involved with defense contracts. There's kind of an old joke that the best way to get a big defense contract is to have already got one. You can't get one unless you've had one. And there's a little bit of truth in that it's easier for the ones that are already established, that are the big major players in the industry, to keep on getting more and more contracts and to grow their industries as defense requirements change. But what you have to understand is that underneath all of those big contractors, there's a lot of little players, a lot of people in the supply chain that work at various levels, right down to a machine, call it a mom and pop operation with a lathe, grinding out some little part that's needed to fit in somewhere to make it all work. So the way really I would suggest for companies that are thinking of trying to get into accessing defense contracts is to watch what's going on in the defense contracting world, to look at Merck's, or now what's starting in June will be the Buy and Sell website, and basically watch who's getting these contracts and then go after them. hunt them down and say, look, I think I can help you here, or how can I help you here? And I understand that this $100 million contract for armored vehicles or for radar systems or for soldier systems of some kind is going to have 100% industrial and regional benefits in Canada. So that means that whoever wins that contract, whether they're in Sweden or the US or whatever, are going to be looking for Canadian partners, Canadian suppliers that they can use, if you will, to get credits for their IRB obligations, industrial regional benefits obligations. So they're not only susceptible to being hunted by you, by anybody interested, but they're also looking for people to play with here, because they have to generate those IRB credits or else they'll be in violation of their contractual obligations. So the way to get involved is to become a player at some level and then grow with the industry as it moves along. So are there any questions about anything I said, or any comments, questions of any kind? Okay, I'm done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Al. Who knew munitions and tactical procurement could be so exciting? Thank you for that fulsome presentation. And this concludes our presentations for today. And I'd just like to thank all the presenters we've had over the course of the day. I think it's been very informative, a lot of great information on how we move innovation in Ontario forward. So thank you very much. I'd like to extend to everybody, please go out and enjoy the balance of the show. And we hope to see you all next year. Thank you so much.